Good afternoon. Friday, the 16th day of October of 2020. I'm Vincent J. Russo of the Russo Law Group. We've been receiving a good number of calls regarding probate over the last handful of months. So I thought it would be a good time to speak with my partner, Marie Elena Puma of the Russo Law Group. Welcome back, Marie Elena Puma.
Thank you, Vincent.
This is great because I really wanted you to talk about probate since you have handled thousands of probates in our law office.
Mm-hmm.
So the topic today is how to avoid probate. But some people who are listening may be even asking the question, what is probate? So let's start with that.
Okay. So probate is a court proceeding in the surrogate's court where the decedent's will is offered for approval and for the appointment of an executor.
All right, so someone signs a will and now it's got to be filed in court. And so do you need an attorney to help you do that?
I would say it's a good practice to have an attorney represent you in a probate proceeding. Correct.
Because you want to make sure it's done right and there are other legal documents that have to get filed, right, with the court process?
Correct.
All right, so someone signs a will, unfortunately they pass away, and then typically the nominated executor then files that will in court. And how long does that typically take?
Well, depending on the county and depending on the court and depending on what's happening with this pandemic, it could take a couple of weeks to a couple of months.
Okay, and I know certain counties could be a year.
Depending on the circumstances, yes.
Yeah, so if that's happening, am I correct that the assets are basically frozen? No one's can handle those assets while probate's going on?
That is correct. So a probate asset, which would be an asset in the decedent's name alone, will basically be frozen or put on hold, so there will be no access to that asset.
All right, so talk to me about the benefits of avoiding probate.
So the number one benefit is just that. You don't have to wait for the court to appoint an executor, giving the powers with letters testamentary to access those assets. If you avoided probate, you have maybe put those assets in another way, another form of ownership, and automatically upon operation of law at death, that person or that fiduciary can access it outside of court.
Operational law, that's typically situation like joint ownership or you name a beneficiary?
Correct.
Okay, so those are ways of avoiding probate, but I know you believe in having a comprehensive estate plan in place for a client. So what would be the best way to go about avoiding probate?
So I believe the best way to avoid probate would be an alternative to a will, and that would be what is known as a revocable living trust. And the revocable living trust can be just like a will and have a section in there that talks about the dispositive provisions and who gets what upon your passing. And you appoint a trustee and successor trustees. And that person, upon your death, that trustee will automatically be able to access your assets and administer your trust in a more efficient and expeditious manner than having to go through a probate proceeding in surrogate's court. The only caveat I have here is that inter vivos living trust is only as good as the assets that were funded into it.
Okay, so inter vivos living trust, typically referred to as a revocable living trust, is the type of trust you're talking about. And your tip is, if you do it, make sure you fund it. And so if I own a house, what has to happen? How do I get it in the trust?
That house needs to be retitled into the name of the trustee of the trust, so it needs to be through a deed transfer.
Okay, and what happens if I forget a couple assets and I don't put it in my trust and I pass away and no beneficiaries named on those assets?
Then you have a probate.
And you're going to have a probate.
Then you have a probate for those assets.
All right. So the key is to make sure you do comprehensive planning and you make sure all the assets are in the revocable living trust if you want to avoid probate. So thank you very much on how to avoid probate. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
There you have it. And as we move into the weekend, continue to wear your masks, do your social distancing, and stay safe.
Getting dark, too dark to see.
Be well and have a great weekend.
Feel like I'm knocking on heaven's door.